it was like such a proud moment because I was in it. I had an OCD moment and I'm washing walls and I'm pulling the stove out and I'm pulling the fridge out and I'm cleaning underneath and he's in there just helping me. And I said, Frankie, thank you so much for helping me. And he looked at me and with such pride, he goes, well, thank you for letting me help you.
Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andee Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. All right, everybody, I am so excited to have one of my clients. She's so amazing. Stephanie Price is here with us today, and we were just chatting before because I couldn't remember exactly when we first ran into each other, but her son is 10. He's amazing, but he was 5 when we first started working together, and she has been an amazing human mother of just watching her progress, her commitment to doing whatever it takes to have the success that she wants, the goals accomplished, the connection she wants with her son, the life she wants, really. And so I feel so honored and privileged to have watched that journey, to be a part of it in just the little way I was a part of it, because it's so much bigger than me. And she'll explain all the different things that she's done, because I really admire your commitment to do whatever it takes. I'm going to figure this out. No matter what, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be really fun to have you explain, maybe start at the beginning, have you explain how it was at the beginning. Because sometimes people, they don't believe that it's possible for them. They're like, nope, it's too late. I can't do this. I'm a mess. I'm not patient. Like, I can't figure this out. So I'd love for you to just paint the picture of what it was like when we first started working together.
So I actually thought the same thing. I thought that I had ruined my child, that there was no turning back. I really was hopeless, and it was bad. It was really bad. Frankie was not happy. He was not emotionally healthy. Neither was I. I was so desperate. And this is really how it started. Okay. I was trying to take Frankie to school. He hated school. He hated me. He hated school. He actually once told me, he said, I wish that you would die so my dad would come back. Like he was miserable. And so I'm going to try not to cry.
It's okay if you do. Emotions are okay here.
Emotions are okay. Yes. So I take him to school and he literally beats me up, right? Like he kicks my knee. I can't walk anymore. And I had a phone call intake. This was like at the beginning of COVID, right? I mean, I had followed you on Facebook a little bit before that. And I was getting your free videos and like, do you want to stop screaming at your kid? I was like, absolutely. Like, how do we do this? But so I go home and I had this scheduled intake with the WISE team, which is basically the highest level of care that you can get for your kid before they are institutionalized into a psych ward. And they were like, absolutely, you meet the criteria, like for services. However, we are so backlogged, we can't get you help for a couple of months. And like, I was devastated. Wow. I dropped to my knees. I started bawling and I prayed and I was like, Lord, help me. I need somebody to come into my life and show me how to do this. Show me how to be a parent. Show me how to live a normal life. Either that or like find somewhere for my son to go and just take my life. Because the struggle was real. Like he was miserable. I was miserable. I really thought that he was going to get his validation and his love from those. I don't know if you guys have them there, but here in Washington, we have those signs that say, you are loved, you matter. You know, they're little signs in people's yards. Yeah. So I was like, he's going to get his validation from those. Like if I don't figure this out. And so I probably sat there and cried for about an hour and a half, just like, what do I do? And then I went into my apartment and I think this is when you had that email that I had opened up and it was, I don't even know what the topic was, but I remember sending you a video and I was just bawling in it. And I was like, if something doesn't change, I'm going to lose my kid. Not only am I going to lose him completely emotionally, but he's probably going to get taken by CPS. Like this is not healthy and I don't know what to do. And so you and I started working together and then I got us into counseling, family counseling. I put myself in counseling. He had his own family counsel. I mean, we really just like, you know, put our heads down and we worked. And it's sad to say because everybody has their own background, right? Everybody does. I didn't come from a loving home. I just naturally loved my mom. I naturally loved my parents, no matter how toxic they were. I loved them. And I was like, why doesn't my son just love me? Like, why? I didn't know that you had to actually get down on his level and respect him and teach him and just show him how to be a human. I didn't know. And so working with you really showed me how to love him and how to get on his level and show him that he is loved and show him that he matters. And it wasn't easy. There were lots of tears. There were lots of frustration. There was lots of starting over, like, it's okay.
Resets.
Resets. Yes. And like, I would write them out, and sometimes I'd write them out, 6, 7 times a day, but I learned that that's okay. Completely okay to start it. We don't know until we know. And then we can only do our best from there. And so that's really how it all started. You're an answered prayer. And the family counselor and this church that I started attending, they loved us through it all. We were a handful and we just didn't know. And so you guys came into our life and just really showed us that emotions are okay. Actions behind those emotions are sometimes not okay. Like, I have videos of, in the beginning, Frankie, like, hitting me, and which, by the way,
I remember all the struggles.
Yeah. Like, I see those on my Google Photos now, and I'm like, gosh, Stephanie, why did you record him? Like, I felt so bad. I felt like now I feel like I was just making it worse, like I was shaming him or something. And like, it just kind of breaks my heart a little bit to think that, gosh, we were there.
Yeah.
We were there. And so that's how it all started, as you're an answered prayer. And you have to be willing, because you have to look at yourself. I was devastated. What do you mean I'm not a good parent? Like, I feed him, I clothe him, I house him. Like, I snuggle with him every single night. What do you mean I'm not a good parent? That's just simply not enough. It's not enough. Like, he's a little human and he needs to be heard. He needs to feel like he has control of his life, even though he's only 10, or at that time, 5, 6, 7, 8, he needed to have some sort of control in our whirlwind life.
Yeah. Oh, I think you were doing the very best you could, given all the things going on in your life at the time. And so if anyone's listening to this and feeling, resonating with the struggles, it's not that you're not a good parent. It's just that you want more.
You want more.
You want more. And a lot of, especially moms, some dads, but especially moms are so hard on themselves, and that can get in your way. Yeah. So I don't know if that was your experience of recognizing, okay, I'm not who I want to be or for my child, and I'm not going to define myself by that. I'm just going to go get help and improve myself. I'm going to be okay. That's my highest right now. I don't like it. If my cap is, at a 1 and I want to be at a 10 or whatever it is, you're feeling like it is, like, there's power in just meeting ourselves where we're at.
Yes. That was big too. That was really big.
Where am I going to go now? Like, I don't need to be anywhere else, but right now, like, this is where I am.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. When I say that I wasn't a good parent, like, I was, and I was doing the best that I could,
You were.
I knew that nobody else was going to love him like I loved him, and nobody else was going to keep him safe like I could keep him safe. I was a good parent, just not to my own standards. Once I started learning things, I was like,
saw so much more. You're like, oh, I want to be that kind of parent.
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat.
We call them generational curses.
Right. Yeah. Let's get rid of those things and move forward. What was the hardest thing once you saw what was possible for you, which was probably part of it, is all of a sudden you saw this new possibility. Oh my goodness, there's so much more that is available to me if I want it. And moving into that, what was the hardest part?
There were times where I was literally like trembling, and I could feel my body hot, and I'm just like, don't respond, Stephanie, don't respond no matter how bad you want to. Like, that was probably the hardest thing, because it's our natural reflex to go right back into our comfort zone, to make sure that we are heard, to make sure that our feelings are known. And we can choose to be offended, or we can choose to look at this as like, what's the problem and what's the solution?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
You're full of wisdom. I love it. You can choose to be offended, or you can choose to look at
what's the problem,
and what's the solution.
Yeah. So that was hard, because my family and my friends, when I first started this journey, we have this saying, like, I would come out the side of my neck, which is like, I would just lose my mind and just start screaming at people. Like, I was so into my emotions and so into my flesh. I don't do that anymore, praise God. But like that was the hardest is, to not do that and not to do that to my son,
Right.
He's so small. And what was it that you said too? Like when he's having a tantrum and he's all in his emotions, it does us, high emotions,
Low intelligence.
low intelligence. Yes. Like that sticks with me too, because that's so true. Like we're just,
Yeah.
and so if he's throwing a tantrum, I need to be the strong one and I need to let him know that that's okay. And these emotions are okay instead of joining him, like making it a lot worse, essentially, So that like,
Oh,
it's a whole bunch of things. And we did family counseling too. And it was really hard because I always wanted my son to know that he was loved, right? 100% no matter what. And so when he was beating me up, I mean, daily, sometimes multiple times a day. And then at nighttime, he was like, I want snuggles to my counselor. And I'm like, how do we fix this? That was also really hard because, he's like, you can still show up for him and you can still love him and you can still lay down and snuggle with him. Just lay with your back to him and don't wrap your arms around with him and just explain to him, like, I love you and I'm here for you and I will never leave you, but you can't put your hands on me. You can't treat me like that. I will never leave you and I love you, but you can't do this. You have to change. Like emotions are okay. Actions behind those emotions are not, depending on
sometimes
what they,
if they're hurting you. Yeah, if
yeah.
they're hurting you, like,
And
it's
there
not
were
okay.
times like he's
Yes.
trying to drag me to, roll. He's like, I mean, it was really hard. It was heartbreaking, but maybe 3 days of that and he stopped hitting me.
I love this. I want to just, what's coming up for me. If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today. I know we talk about this a lot in the program. I love, by the way, that you got extra support along the way. I highly recommend, especially for kids. I'm only working with the parents too, so I'm always supportive and encouraging parents. Like if your child needs to meet with someone, for sure, go get them the help they need. But sometimes we need to be involved in that too and get extra support. And gosh, let's get the right kind of support that's helping us move in the same direction.
Yeah.
But the boundaries are for us and not for a punishment to our child. So when you're turning over on your back, you're having a firm boundary, because this way of parenting with connection, Connect Method Parenting, it's not passive. We're not just letting him, I need to be connected. I just need to let him hit me, or I need to let him do whatever. That's actually counterintuitive and very damaging. But I love that the boundary was so clean. The way you're describing it is, I'm doing this for me, so I'm not hurt, but I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
Like I know you're struggling, and this is a boundary for me, not a punishment.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we accidentally, especially as we're navigating between the two worlds of corrective to connective, is we are confused still that punishments, like that these boundaries are a punishment to them, or that the punishment is going to teach them a lesson for good.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No,
that does not work.
No,
because they're just more triggered. Now our emotions are even higher, and their intelligence even lower. And
yes, that was hard. And then a lot of the stuff that sticks out with me is, remember my mental breakdown about my messy house?
Yes,
I could not deal with it. I would get so overwhelmed. And so now, and I was trying to figure out, how do I implement him helping me clean the house? Because I'm a single mom and I work and I volunteer and I go to, Bible college and like all of this stuff. And I don't even honestly know what the switch was, but he helps me now. Every time I get up and clean, he gets up and does it too. And the other day, it was like such a proud moment because I was in it. I had an OCD moment and I'm washing walls and I'm pulling the stove out and I'm pulling the fridge out and I'm cleaning underneath. And he's in there just helping me. And I said, Frankie, thank you so much for helping me. And he looked at me and with such pride, he goes, well, thank you for letting me help you. And I was
oh
just
my
like,
gosh, I love that.
there's like he wants to help me now. He wants to help me. It was so great.
That's the switch.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a connection and the relationship that you
yes.
created and the respect you had for yourself and him.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is like, he's always like, Mom, can my friend come over? And I'm like, no, our house is a mess. I don't freak out about our house being a mess anymore, but also I'm not going to let people come over and see it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, when are we going to clean our house? And I'm like, I don't know. When are we going to clean our house, Frankie? Like, I'm not your
Uh-huh.
maid. I wasn't put on this
Yeah.
earth to continually clean up after you.
I've got a lot of things going on. I'm going to school. I'm
Yeah.
doing these things. I'm volunteering.
Yep, yep. And so he just started doing it with me. I go in and do the dishes in the morning, and he comes right on in and helps me. I make it. He even helps me make his lunch and make his breakfast. I mean, we're a team now instead of. I mean, we're still mother and son. That sounded really weird, but like
No,
when it
but you're
comes,
on the same team instead of opposing each other, which
yeah,
is how it feels sometimes
yeah,
when you're trying to get them to do what you want. And it's just the tug of war. It's
it
just,
is.
ooh,
It
feels
was a big
awful.
struggle.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, I believe it was you who said like we never arrive, right? Because what worked for him last year doesn't work for him this year. And it's
I
probably not
know.
going to work for him next year either. Like,
Yeah, it just changes and we change. Parenting is something we're in for our whole life.
yeah.
We're always the parent. So there's no crossing this. I used to want to rush to the finish line and yay,
Mhm.
I figured it all out. And
Yep.
it's constant. It's
Yeah.
a constant marathon. It's a beautiful marathon, but it's a constant
Yeah.
marathon.
And
And that
there's
we're
still
training,
times
we're running.
there's still times where I get frustrated. Like we'll be bickering back and forth. This actually happened the other day. And I can recognize his emotions now, which I never did before, right?
Mm.
I can recognize what's happening with him. And so the other day we were bickering back and forth. We were on our way to school. We were on our way out the door and we're running late. And I walk out and there's our friend Julie in the hallway and she's like, her eyes are just big because and we're both we're not rude or nasty to each other, but we're just like throwing it at each other, right? And she's like, good morning, Stephanie. And I said, well, hi, Julie. And she goes, having a rough morning. And I said, do you want a kid? And clearly I was joking, right? But Frankie went into the elevator and like his shoulders were low and he kind of went into the corner. And I said, I'm sorry, baby. I said, did I hurt your feelings? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I don't be like, he goes, I know we hurt each other's feelings, but I don't be like, do you want a mom? And I was like, I will never give you away. Like, I promise you. I said I was kind of joking to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. He goes, well, that hurt. And, and that's the beautiful thing too, is like, he can tell me now what's wrong with him instead
Yeah.
of in the past, he would like run away from me and hide in the corner and like want nothing to do with me. And now he tells me what's going on. He actually leans into me for care now instead of running away.
And you're not getting defensive. I would guess too in the past, if he would have said something like, well, why did you say you wanted to give me away? It would have been almost now I have to defend that
Mm,
thing I just said and prove that I don't really want, and then we go into this energy of
yeah.
like defensiveness that you
Yeah.
didn't go into.
Or honestly, in the past, I would have been like, well, because you're rude to me and you hurt my feelings.
Yeah,
And like,
blame them. Yeah, it's
yeah,
because you're just not being great today. Like, who
yes,
would blame me?
yeah. And that's funny too, because I'm not in that place anymore, right? Like, I don't,
Yeah, it doesn't even occur to you.
yeah. And that's another thing. You can choose to be hurt. Your feelings, you can choose to let your feelings get hurt, or you can just see that this is where we're at right now. It's not
Yeah.
intentional. He doesn't intentionally hurt my feelings. I don't intentionally hurt his feelings. And that was a big thing too. I was like, I don't even remember what one of your coaching sessions it was, but I was like, oh yeah, like how would he even know to hurt my feelings? Why would he
Yeah.
want to? And so that was a big shift for me also.
So good. I talk a lot about that, this idea that ultimately our kids need the relationship they have with us more than anything else. It's a survival thing for them
Mm-hmm.
at a foundational level, but then there's also the emotional and all the other levels that make them want to be connected to us. But for us to think they're sabotaging it or they're doing this on purpose, it's so crazy now to even think that I believed that once, that they
Yeah.
could intentionally do that instead of, oh, they're just struggling right now.
Yeah.
They're just hurting. They're
Yeah.
insecure. They're frustrated because of schoolwork. Like there's a reason they're this way. It's completely makes sense
Yeah.
to their nervous system. Can I just help them get through it? Because if I get frustrated that they're being this way or blame them or think they're doing it intentionally, I'm just pouring more fuel on the fire.
Yeah, exactly. And you lose that connection. You're so much further away
Yeah.
than you were when you started. And so
Right.
like that was big. I always try to like not baby him, but like figure out what's going on because he's actually a very vibrant, happy, really good little leader, and like I can tell when he's off his kilter. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And usually somebody hurts his feelings. And then there's another big thing too is like, who can we control? We can only control ourselves. And like, I'm really sorry that they hurt your feelings, but do you think that they did that intentionally or was it an accident? And like, and we can, walk through it and then he'll give me a hug and he'll be like, see you later. Like, no, you know what I mean? No
Oh,
big
good.
deal. Yeah. And literally, he would run from me. He would not tell me anything that was going on with him, whether it was his emotions or he stubbed his toe or, somebody. Do you remember when his friend kicked him in his lip at school?
I do remember this.
He
Yes, I
didn't tell
do
me.
remember this.
He wouldn't tell me what had happened. I was livid, blood all over and like, we went from that to him telling me now when people hurt his feelings.
That's the benefit of a really connected relationship, that you've gotten out of that knee-jerk reaction, you trust him, you
Yeah.
trust yourself. And what you're describing in a lot of the examples you've shared is just believing beyond his behavior. I say a lot of times behavior is information instead
Mm-hmm.
of, it just gets us into this curious place.
Yeah.
Instead of behavior, I mean, that him doing that behavior means he's rude or unkind, or it's just information.
Yeah. What was that you used to? I'm sure you still say it, but like if we believe that our child is unkind or rude or what's it like, then
Yeah,
that's what they're going to be. We have to
right.
thank them even when like for opening the door for us, even if they don't mean to. Remember that you were like,
Yeah,
you have to just
yeah.
thank them and
Energizing
recognize
kindness.
it. Yeah, like thank you. That was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
kind of you. And he was like, what? I no. And I'm like, but it was.
It's like,
Thank
don't thank
you.
me.
Yeah. He was like, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to open that for you. And I'm like, but you did, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. And that's part of reprogramming our brain too, to look for what's working.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to find all of the things that aren't working, and the way our kids misbehaving, and the way they're being rude or unkind. If that's what we're convinced that they are, or
Yeah.
who they are,
That's
what
all
they're,
we'll see.
that's all we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
filter out everything else, and it doesn't serve them or
Yeah.
us. What was the hardest thing to transition from correcting, punishments, rewards, that kind of mindset, to more of trusting in the connection? And yeah, you have to set limits and you have to have rules, and yeah, you still have to have that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to enforce it by being all punitive and, in that sense, and trust that most of the time the correction doesn't even need to happen because I'm so connected and I can just impact and influence. For you, what was the hardest thing about switching
Honestly,
mindset?
probably just not punishing him for his behaviors, not taking something away for his behaviors. Now, don't get me wrong, because I do, there's consequences for his actions. So we're in this thing right now where he
Okay.
has a phone that's only Wi Fi and he has a switch, right? So he's been lying to me about his homework, saying he doesn't have homework so that then he can get on his electronic.
But he does have homework.
But he does have homework. So right now he doesn't have an electronic. Like, I'm sorry, but if we can't be
Yes.
responsible with what we have to do, then we don't get this. This is a privilege. It's not like this isn't owed to you, baby. Like, it's a privilege to have this. So I still do, consequences for his actions, but probably the hardest thing in that with everything else was not giving him consequences for his actions. Like, it's okay, we'll just reset. Like, you go, and literally, like, he would have to go to his room, I would have to go to my room, and he didn't understand. He would keep pushing, and I'm like, I need a break too. I need a break right now so that we don't freak out. Like, but just not really just letting him, but letting him, like, okay, you can have the TV for, half hour. And in my mind, I'm like, even though you were really nasty to me, so but here's the thing now is like, I don't even really remember when that transition happened, when he wanted to start listening to me, when he wanted to start helping me, when he stopped being mean to me and stopped being rude. It just happened.
It happened because of how you showed up differently. I remember watching it. It was just, you were changing in how you were interpreting his behavior and his emotions, how you were responding to them. And after a while, the relationship just shifts. But a lot of times it's so subtle because it's not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
Consequences are or punitive consequences. And I do want to go back and talk about your example, because I think your example is beautiful with the switch. So I do want to point out why that's so beautiful and works. But a lot of times we're using consequences in a very punitive way. Like, you don't get this thing because you made this terrible choice, and you need to know that this is because, you're not doing well or whatever. And we come from this frustration or anger or upset. And what's really happening is we're so dysregulated in our nervous system. We have this fight or flight response happening. And so it feels really uncomfortable. And so we try to get it to be solved by giving our child a consequence or by having this stop or having their emotions stop, whatever it is. It's like, I need you to stop.
Yeah.
And we're really putting all of the pressure on them when they're so immature and not really capable. And they're like, what's happening? Because really the parent is supposed to co-regulate with the child emotionally. We're so dysregulated. They're dysregulated, but now we're making it all their fault that you're dysregulated. So that's the problem when we give consequences in a punitive way out of anger or frustration. That's so disconnecting. It doesn't work on so many levels. But I love what you were saying at first. You needed to just give yourself space from each other so that you could actually get yourself in a place where you could see straight and you weren't coming out of your neck, like you said, you're just weren't losing your mind.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone hears that, because that's a beautiful step forward, is not doing more harm. Like we need everyone safe. So if he's hurting someone or it's, we need to stop a behavior or whatever, we need to keep him safe and we need to keep ourselves from doing more harm than good. So just honor that part. That's the training our nervous system to not just go right into defense mode or fight mode that you were talking about at the beginning. That was the hardest part, was just not having the knee-jerk reaction, not having that instant reaction to him.
Because let's be honest, like it feels really good to let go of that anger.
Yes.
Not let go of it, but like let go of it onto like, bro, you did, like it feels good and empowering, but then also, directly after you feel horrible,
because it's not true. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, that's not even true. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he did something. I might need to address it, but it's not his fault. I'm angry.
Yeah.
That's my fault.
I get to choose how I react to his behaviors.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You get to choose. And that's a process. And if that's hard for someone to do right now, it's fine. It's like, oh, you just recognize where you're at. And I love that we know that it is possible to have a choice, even if right now it doesn't feel like you have a choice, knowing, oh, I can have a choice. At least it gives us hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So what you were talking about with the switch and the phone right now, I love it, because this is where people get so confused. I don't use the word consequence very often because most of the time we associate it with that anger and punitive, and we're thinking it's going to teach them to stop doing that thing forever, but it's not dialed in quite right. But if we do a connective consequence, which is what you're talking about, more like cause and effect, and we have this structure and order, beautiful. I typically use the word limit just because it's a different word and it lets our brain have something totally else to latch onto. But it's completely appropriate to say, hey, if you're not capable of doing your homework before you play switch and you're not able to be honest about that with me right now, it's actually not a problem. We just need to put some things in place to help you be successful. So it's coming from such a different, externally, it might look the same. I'm taking away some things, so because he didn't do his homework, but it's not. Internally, it's so different. It's from a place of service and love and almost compassion. Like you wouldn't introduce a substance to someone if they're if they were addicted to it and they're just trying to overcome it. That would be so unkind to say, hey, you want some of this?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't, but I can't hardly say no. And those devices are almost as addictive in some ways. And
they really are.
It's not helpful to say, hey, let me just leave you to your own devices and hope you make a really good choice, because homework is so not exciting compared to playing the switch.
Yeah.
But I know you're going to make a good choice. And eventually he will, but knowing until he is, I'm here to help him.
Yeah.
And so this is not punitive. And the consequence isn't going to teach him to do his homework. It's just going to set him up for success. So hopefully we can learn some good habits, or he can understand the value of learning. Like the lesson comes from the connection he has with you and realizing, oh, this is important to mom, or now it's important to me. All of those things come out of that.
Yeah. Well, and here's the best thing too I got from you. You're just not ready. Maybe you're just not ready for it. Maybe we're just not ready to hang out with these friends here, because we're leaders and we know how to act, and we're not ready to be able to hang out with these people and not pick up their behaviors. And that has been huge in who we hang out with, how we hang out with them, and with the phone, and with, the chores, and chores are no longer I'm not joking when I say that chores are no longer an issue.
I love it. It's so good.
And then this morning I was, his shoes are in between the couch and the table and his garbage. And I was like, well, thank you for picking up your garbage last night as I'm picking it up. And he comes out and he takes it out of my hands. He's like, I'm sorry, I forgot. And, it's a whole nother level when you bring up, maybe we're just not ready.
Yeah. He's just not ready
to
make the choice between the switch and the homework right now
Yeah.
without maybe something in place for you to help him,
Yeah.
through that. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
just not ready. So good. If one of our kids is having struggling behavior and that's where they are. Like they're obviously telling you they're not ready. I use that so much when you brought it up. I'm like, oh, I use that all the time.
Yeah.
They're just not ready. They're telling you through their behavior. They're just not
They're just
ready.
not ready.
Don't judge it.
Yep. And I'll talk to him about it too, about not being ready, because it covers a whole bunch of things, not just the switch, but it covers, and he'll understand. He'll be like, you're right. Maybe I'm not. I'm like, okay,
And
so
there's no
let's,
judgment.
yeah.
He probably doesn't
Yep.
feel like it's not a terrible thing.
Yep. Today he has confidence, and that's something that we were both lacking in the beginning, right? Was self-confidence
Yes.
and self-worth. And so we both have that today. My sister told me the other day, she was like, you walk with a confidence that I've never seen you walk with before. And I'm like, that's because I know things now. Like,
You've invested in yourself and done the hard work.
yeah, it's a continued, willingness to continue to grow and change with him.
So good. How would you define parenting success if someone was asking you now? Maybe two definitions, what you used to define it as and what you would define it as now.
So in the past, I would define it as a child who acts appropriate, who dresses appropriate, like who's always fed, always clean, always, looks great. And now the question is, it's just the relationship. Do you have a relationship with your kid? And I feel like that's what's successful, is when you have a relationship and a connection with your child, you are successful. Because we say, a couple of friends of mine and I say, like, we don't care if you are not the smartest kid in class. We don't care if you are the nicest dressed kid in class. Like, we care how you treat people. We care how, like, where your heart is. And that's exactly it. Like, where is your kid's heart? Where is your heart with your kid? And I feel like if you can say, like, it's good, like, my kid is very kind and loving and compassionate, I feel like that's success.
Yeah. And I just want to ask one more follow-up question on that. If let's say they're back, like, and their kid is struggling for whatever reason, right? Maybe they're lost all their friends at school, or they're just struggling. They're not able to perform at school. Maybe they have dyslexia. Who knows? Like, there's some reason that they're not being kind and nice. How could the parents still be feeling successful, do you think? I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Try to connect, try to figure out, what is the problem? Why are they acting like this? It's a symptom. Their behavior is a symptom of what is going on within them. And so we need to figure out, with these symptoms, what's the problem? Where do we go from here? Like, are you not understanding what's going on in your math? Like, are you angry with some? And a lot of, like, and here's a big thing that I had to realize too, like, a lot of the reasons Frankie gets angry at his classmates right now is because they have dads and he doesn't. And he will take it out on, like, he'll get jealous of that. But here's the thing, is, like, we were trying to figure out for a long time, like, why is that? Like, why are you being so angry towards this person? Like, they're your friend. And he says, well, and it would take him a couple days, because this wasn't, and he'd be like, well, his dad picked him up and I just didn't like it. And I was like, does that remind you of your dad? And he says, and then, like, it's a whole thing, right? Like, and so it's something, his dad hasn't been in his life for 6 years. You really wouldn't think, like, he even thinks about his dad anymore, but it's there, whether he wants to admit it, or which he does now. He really talks to me a lot about how much he misses his dad and how it affects his day-to-day life. And so I now know, when we go and do a play date, or when he is with a friend who has a dad, he's going to have some behavior issues because he's emotional about it.
Oh, so good. And if you didn't have the relationship with him to figure that out, how many parents accidentally, they're doing the best they can. I do believe that. So no judgment here, but jump into punishing, or if you're not going to be nice to your friends, then, and then the kid gets the message they're not a nice person. There's a whole spiral that could go down there, instead of just realizing, oh, I'm just really bad and hurting when I see all these other dads and I don't have that. And that makes me angry. And so then I act out. So this idea that parenting success has nothing to do with the kid's behavior, it has everything to do with how we show up for our child, no matter what kind of behavior they're having. And we figure it out, and we're their advocate, and we're committed to helping them heal if they're hurting and they need something, or just vent if they're frustrated, or cry if they need to cry, or whatever we need to help them. That's the indicator of success, is, can I honor my child and love them even at their worst, and know this is really not who they are. This is just a symptom.
Yeah.
I'm like the doctor, you're the patient coming in. I'm just here listening, just so I can
Yeah.
help subscribe, not to fix because it's broken, but to help them live their best life and give them the best opportunity for success.
Yeah, and that's another thing too is they're so young, they don't know what's going on with them. They can't regulate or figure like they don't know what their emotions are. They don't know that Frankie didn't even know what the word jealous meant. He didn't understand that his heart was hurting because he's jealous of that other kid having a dad. He didn't know that. All he knew was it hurt him. Like
Yeah. And
in
now
the
I'm
beginning.
angry, or now I'm going to act out some way. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't know how to regulate my emotions. I don't know how to tell anybody that this hurts because I don't know why this hurts. Like I mean, it's definitely a process, and so we have to remember too, they just don't know what they're feeling. They know they're feeling
Right.
something and they don't know how to act on it. And so we have to help them figure out what emotion they're feeling and why they're feeling this. And then it's like a rubber band ball, right? We just take one layer off at a time and figure it out.
Yeah. It never goes away though. We're always our whole life. We always are discovering more things about ourselves, but to think that they should have it figured out when their
Yeah.
cortex isn't even, I mean, Frankie's 10, so he's just coming online with the prefrontal cortex, and he looks like a grown-up miniature man, but he's just, his brain isn't going to be fully developed. For guys, it's 30.
Wow.
That's what the science is saying.
Wow.
So he's got a couple decades ahead of him before it's going to come on more, but it's not going to be fully developed. Yeah. And the way helping him have this environment where it's safe to feel his emotions and he feels safe with you. That's another thing I would say is parenting success is, does my child feel safe with me? Which obviously he does because he's sharing.
Yeah.
That helps that prefrontal cortex become more developed in the timeline it can. Yeah. And to really be able to fulfill his potential as the human.
And I feel like it goes a lot more beyond than like, emotions and like, I'm jealous of this person. Like he just started playing violin and he broke the strings on it. And I said, well, how did that happen? He goes, I was winding it. And I guess it just doesn't wind that far. And I'm like, okay. I said, did you get like, he goes, my teacher was a little upset because I broke 2 strings. I said, well, did you tell her that you were just trying to figure out the violin? And so, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, he broke his violin. You're in trouble. Now we have to fix it. Like, okay, he was curious. He's never held a violin before. So he doesn't know that those strings break. Like, and we really have to understand that they just don't know. And we have to help guide them and teach them in everything.
That's so true. It's so true. So what advice would you give another parent who's maybe hesitant because they're afraid, if I give up consequences, the punitive, the rewards, the consequences that are done out of frustration and anger, that I'm going to just lose control? And they're worried. That's a lot of times what it's like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? What might you tell them? Reassure them that it's not terrible. They're not going to lose control.
Here's the thing. We might lose a little bit of control in the beginning, right? We might feel like we've lost a little bit of control.
But you feel like you've lost a little control just because you're used to manipulating in a certain way.
Yeah, but that's just not the case. Be patient and trust the process. And you're going to come out on a beautiful side where, they always say the grass is greener on the other side. You're going to come out on that side where it's just beautiful and it's so much less stress. It's the easier, softer way. And it is uncomfortable because we're doing something new. They're doing something new. It's like a bunch of dust in the air and we have to figure out, like, wait for it to settle. And then you see your path that you've created, and it just trust the process and be patient. And it really is worth it. And use your support. How many times did I message you 10:30, 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah, we have the community there for a reason. Like, share when you're struggling and don't be afraid to be honest with what's happening. And I promise everything that you're going through, someone else has gone through, and you're not alone. You're not a unicorn.
Yes.
That's the only one with this problem. A lot of parents think that, like, I'm the only one.
No,
I'm the only one.
Here's something that I didn't mention in the beginning, right? I'm a recovering addict. And so when I came to you, I was in my full-blown addiction, right? And so like everybody comes from different backgrounds, but I feel like you've created a formula for anybody. Absolutely anybody can accomplish this connection with your kid. I didn't come from love. I didn't come from support. Nobody taught me anything. I came from a pretty shell of a background. I didn't know what to do. All we knew growing up was drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And trust the process. You are worth it. You do deserve it. no matter what you've come from or where you think you might go in your child is the number one, and you can have that connection with him that you've never experienced before.
I love that. It's never too late.
It's never too late.
And you don't have too big of problems that you
Nope.
can't figure this out. I mean, you are such an amazing example of just a lot of things that some people might say it's just too hard. The cards were stacked against me when I was born, it's not my fault. And
Yeah.
I honor people's struggles, but you really pushed through that in a way and created a totally new life for yourself that
Completely
is
different.
almost unrecognizable to
Yeah.
when we first met. It's just incredible what you have created for yourself. And I'm so honored to a witness to that journey and helped as much as I could. I was
Yeah.
always thinking about you and so grateful for your commitment to continue to show up, even when I was presenting things that were really, outside of the box for traditional things. I'm challenging you and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
And just know, hopefully other parents will hear this and realize it's safe. Like,
It
this
is
is
so
safe,
safe.
it's tried, it's true, and it works. And you actually have more impact and influence. Wouldn't you say, like, now, like, we have this perceived feeling of control and feeling of our ability to shape and mold our kids when we're using, punitive consequences and rewards. But isn't it just like pale in comparison to
Yeah.
what's now? It's all fake. It's like the sugar hit. It's this temporary little hit that's fizzles out like
Yeah.
that. And then you have the fallout too.
Yeah.
The cost of consequences
Yeah.
when we're done in a frustrated way is so high.
Yeah. And that's the great thing too. My sponsor always used to tell me, like, you look like you have everything all together, but you really don't. And it's like that's kind of how it was with the consequences and the rewards, right? Like, we have it
Ah,
together for
so
just
good.
we just have it together for a minute, but we really did not.
It's a
So
mess back here.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hot mess. Like, you can't see it, but I know it. And so, like, it really was a whirlwind of answered prayers. The counseling. I do Alcoholics Anonymous now. I have a
Yeah.
sponsor. I have a complete support group there. Dive in to your support network, because there's somebody. And here's the thing. Here's the greatest thing is, like, we all experience different things. We all come from different backgrounds. So no matter what I'm going through, I know that there's somebody in my support network who has gone through it. And if they don't know, they know somebody who does, and they're willing to help, because we're all a community.
So good. Yeah. To get all of the help you need for all of the challenges that you're going through. And I just love your vulnerability and honesty. Oh my gosh, this was so fun to talk and do a little recap of,
Yeah.
I feel like we're summarizing what's happened for the last 5 years as we've
Yeah.
worked together, and huge celebrations and wins. I'm so proud, honored, blessed, all of the things to have witnessed the entire journey. And I can't even wait. I mean, I feel like you're just getting started.
Absolutely.
You're
Absolutely.
just getting started. I'm sure we'll talk more as Frankie becomes a teenager. Wait, you're so equipped. So now
Yeah.
it's going to just be, okay, help me clean up my brain or see what's missing so that I can tackle this new thing that's coming up. But the foundation is set.
It's
The
set.
foundation is set.
Yeah.
And so you're just building on it. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your help and all of your time that you put into both me and Frankie.
Oh, you are so welcome.
It's
Any
so
final
worth it.
words?
Don't ever stop doing what you're doing. And, like, to any mamas out there, it is uncomfortable, and you are going to feel like a failure until one day you're just not. One day you're just going to be like, hey, I did that. Hey, I succeeded in that. You're not filling out those reset papers, 7 times a day.
All the
Like,
papers I give you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, just hang in there, and it's definitely worth it.
I love that. It reminds me of just one final thought, that we only fail if we don't learn from it.
Yeah.
And I love saying we never fail. We only learn and grow, because
Yeah.
if you're learning from every setback, every
Mhm.
misstep, then it's not even a failure, because it's the catalyst to the next leap.
Yeah.
And so I don't believe in failure.
Yeah. And that's what I tell Frankie. I'm like, you know what? I said, we like challenges, and because we're doing long division right now. And he's
Oh,
like,
that's challenging. I
yeah,
remember learning that as a kid.
yeah.
It was
Well, praise
incomprehensible.
God, we're in a school now that's teaching it the traditional way, and it's not
Oh,
the
good.
Common Core way or whatever that is. But so I'm
I
like,
don't even know what that way is.
we like challenges. And he says, no, we don't. And I said, yeah. I said, because we get to learn from it. I said, and yeah, we might have failed, but look, we learned what to do different this time.
That's
So
right.
I try to encourage him to take on tasks head on and not get discouraged, because we learn. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity.
Right. And you're an example of that. So it's so easy to teach what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, also one of the reasons consequences sometimes don't work is because we're trying to force something without doing the learning ourselves.
Yeah.
We're frustrated. We're like, calm down. And we're a hot mess and we're yelling and we're not calm. It's really, there's such a disconnection there. But if we are the living, breathing example of, hey, I do hard things and I learn from my mistakes and I feel my emotions and all of the things we talk about, I see behavior as information for you and for me, like, then they can come along the journey with us and grow.
And that's the thing too, is like when they're throwing tantrums, it's okay. I remember I was in the store one time and I had a bunch of extra kids with me and everybody's like, I want. And I was so calm. And I was like, I'm sorry, we can't do that. But why? And like just driving me insane. And I just like stayed completely calm. And I'm like, we're not getting that. I'm sorry. We're choosing to spend our money elsewhere. And this is not where, and there were so many parents that were like, how did you do that? Like, that was so amazing. And I'm just thinking in my brain, like, I'm about to lose it. But I didn't. I stayed calm. And in return, that created a connection, not only with my kid, but with the other kids that were with me, because I didn't turn around and scream at them like everybody else does, And so there's going to be a lot of that happening, mamas and dads. Like there's going to be a lot of situations like that where you feel like you're going to absolutely lose your mind. But I promise you, it will get better. It will get so much better.
Yeah. And even to be able to do that in that situation is an example of, it's a culmination rather of all of the work you did to keep your nervous system regulated. Yeah. I can feel the discomfort, but I'm not going to react to it.
I can feel the heat in my face.
I can feel it and I can be with it. And then I can choose, like you were saying, we have but only when you have practiced enough can you actually choose in the moment.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what you did. Oh, that's a perfect way to end it. It's such a beautiful example of where we can get to. And we're not going to be there in every situation and every time, but that is ultimately where we're shooting for, and just constantly iterating on, okay, let me learn so I can get to that place. So beautiful.
I still sometimes will lose my cool in situations.
Of course,
I'm not perfect.
We're humans.
It still happens, but definitely a lot less than in the past.
Yeah. And the recovery is faster. And because you've invested so much in, if it's with Frankie, like the relationship is strong enough that the recovery is so fast.
Yeah.
It's for you and him, and so good.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Once again, just love the conversation. And I know it's going to be helpful for so many people to hear it and have hope that Connect Method Parenting can get you to a place that you only dreamed was possible.
Yes.
But it's not. It's real.
It's real. I have the life that I only seen in movies or TV shows. And I promise you, it's real. It can happen. It can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method Parenting Coaching Program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.